Hey there, friends. It's Nick. This is episode 447 of the Story Hacker podcast. So, just a quick note before we start. If you hear some crackling in the background of this recording, it's not you, not your ears, it's not your speakers or your headphones. The wood-burning stove is alight next to me and is crackling merrily away. Right, so today I just want to pull... my daughter asked me over the weekend, how is it that you've done 445 podcasts? What keeps you going? And, I've talked before on this podcast about resilience, about bloody-mindedness. And I've also talked about the kind of epic mindset. And the analogy I used, when I was 21, I sailed across the Atlantic on a very small yacht. And for me, at that age, it was an epic journey of adventure, of exploration, internally and externally. And even though the day-to-day mechanics of crossing an ocean can be very straightforward, there is, of course, a lot of sitting there and looking at the water. That, to me, is much more exciting, much more meaningful than, a day sail from Southampton, which is just down the road from me. Which would be much busier, but at the end of the day, you get home and, you're back where you started. So for me, the epic mindset is one of the things that I know from experience drives me, particularly when I'm doing, hard, repetitive things. And by the way, I'm not really saying the podcast is hard to do. I don't find that particularly. But for example, writing a novel is hard. The slog of building a business over 20 years can certainly be hard sometimes. But the way I've framed, the answer to my daughter's question really is the way that I frame this journey, this podcast journey, is with a story, although it's a story told in retrospect. You know how we all understand, right? There isn't really overnight success. I worked really hard for 5 years and then I was an overnight success. That's really how the real world works. So the way that I tend to frame this journey, is the story that will be told about it in 5 or 10 years' time. And people will say, you know that guy Nick Warren? He did 1,000 podcasts before he got his break. He did 1,000 podcasts before that thing happened that shot him through. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not 1,000. Maybe it's 449. I'll see you this time next week. But do you see what I'm saying? That framing for me, and maybe for you, helps me put some context and put some meaning into the act of getting up every day and articulating a thought. And just to clarify, and I've said this many times, just the act of doing this is valuable to me every day. So that's one of the reasons why it doesn't feel hard, because the return on investment for this time is huge. But it's definitely true that it is also demonstrating for other people a certain characteristic of resilience and confidence maybe, and bloody-mindedness and all those things that about me, that is useful for me to demonstrate both for myself and for other people as I build this business. And it's one of the ways in which my story means business, and one of the ways in which maybe yours can too. Thanks for listening. Well, actually, let me just say this. Since I started my podcast, I know several people who've also started one. And they have stopped, I think, way too quickly. So I think, as with so much, I was writing on a forum yesterday about someone who was asking a business question. And in this world, we think so much that business success is correlated somehow with speed of success. But for me, there is a much, much higher correlation with stamina. And, that is the core thing that I exhibit in this podcast, I would say. As I move on my journey a step every day towards 1,000 podcasts, or whatever the number turns out to be. This is what we're demonstrating here. Thanks for listening. Bye now.